I wake before dawn most mornings now, not because I want to, but because my body refuses to let me sleep past 5. The phantom pains see to that. They say it's normal, that your brain still thinks the legs are there, sending signals to limbs that no longer exist. On particularly cruel mornings, I swear I can feel my toes curling against sheets that don't touch them anymore. Today is one of those mornings. I lie in bed and stare at the ceiling fan, watching the blades cut lazy circles through the dark, and I think about the medal. It sits in the drawer of my nightstand, wrapped in the same torn piece of gauze they used to stop the bleeding that day. I haven't looked at it in weeks, maybe months, but I know it's there. I always know it's there. The apartment is quiet except for the hum of traffic beginning to build on the street below. I live on the 4th floor of a building in Pinheiros, São Paulo, in a neighborhood that's become trendy without my noticing. When I moved here 6 years ago, right after the rehabilitation center finally released me, the streets were quieter. Now there are specialty coffee shops on every corner and young professionals jogging past at all hours. I watch them sometimes from my window, their legs moving in that effortless rhythm I used to take for granted. I push myself up and reach for the prosthetics leaning against the wall. The left one first, then the right. The process has become mechanical after all this time, but it never stops feeling foreign. The silicone liners, the careful alignment, the straps and locks. On a good day, it takes me 8 minutes. On a bad day, when my residual limbs are swollen or the phantom pains are particularly vicious, it can take 20. Today falls somewhere in between. The face that stares back at me from the bathroom mirror is 34 years old but feels ancient. Dark circles beneath brown eyes, hair that needs cutting, pulled back in a messy bun. I used to care about my appearance. I used to spend 45 minutes getting ready for work, coordinating outfits, perfecting my makeup. Now I'm lucky if I remember to brush my teeth before noon. But today is different. Today I've made a promise to myself, the kind of promise I've been making and breaking for months. Today I'm going to the park. The decision feels monumental even though it shouldn't. It's just a park. Parque Ibirapuera, sprawling and green and full of people living their lives without a second thought. I used to go there all the time before the accident. I'd run the trails every Saturday morning, 7 kilometers without stopping, earbuds in, music loud, feeling invincible in the way you only feel when you're young and healthy and haven't yet learned how quickly everything can be taken away. I haven't been back since. I make coffee, strong and black, and stand by the window while I drink it. The medal weighs on my mind even though it's still in the drawer. I could leave it there. I should leave it there. But something pulls me back to the bedroom, and before I can second-guess myself, I'm unwrapping it from the gauze and holding it in my palm. It's smaller than I remember. Tarnished bronze, the ribbon faded from red to a dull rust color. The engraving on the back is barely legible now. Terceiro lugar, Corrida Beneficente São Paulo 2019, 10K Feminino. 3rd place. Not first, not second. 3rd. I'd been so disappointed at the time, convinced I could have pushed harder, run faster. I'd clutched this medal in my hand during the award ceremony with a smile that didn't reach my eyes, already planning how I'd train differently for the next race. I'd been wearing it around my neck when the truck hit me. The memory surfaces unbidden, as it always does. The sun bright overhead, the intersection on Avenida Paulista, the music in my ears too loud to hear the screaming, the medal bouncing against my chest with each stride, and then the impact, the world spinning, the pavement rushing up to meet me. The last thing I remember clearly is the sound of metal grinding against bone. After that, everything is fragments, sirens, voices shouting in Portuguese I couldn't understand through the shock, hands on my body. The medal pressed against my palm, though I don't remember grabbing it. Someone must have put it there. I close my fist around it now and feel the edges bite into my skin. This medal should have been lost in the chaos. It should have been thrown away with my running shoes, my bloodied clothes, all the pieces of my old life that ended on that street. But it survived, and for reasons I've never been able to articulate, even to my therapist, I've kept it. Maybe because it's the last thing I earned with my legs. Maybe because it reminds me of who I used to be. Or maybe because carrying it feels like penance for a sin I can't name but know I committed. I was too confident, too careless, too certain that nothing bad could happen to me. And I paid the price. I thread the medal onto a thin silver chain I usually wear empty and fasten it around my neck. It settles against my collarbone, heavier than it should be. Then I get dressed, loose cotton pants that hide the prosthetics, a comfortable shirt, sneakers that took me 2 months to learn to tie again. I grab my backpack, my keys, my phone, and I leave before I can change my mind. The journey to Ibirapuera takes 40 minutes by bus. I could take an Uber, but something about being in a car still makes my chest tight. The bus is safer somehow, even though logically I know that's not true. I sit in the designated accessible seating and watch the city slide past the windows. São Paulo on a Friday morning is chaos. Vendors setting up on corners, buses belching exhaust, motorcycles weaving through traffic with inches to spare. The noise is overwhelming after so many quiet months at home. A woman with a small child boards at the next stop. The child, maybe 3 years old, stares at me with the unfiltered curiosity only children possess. His mother notices and tugs his hand, whispering something sharp in his ear. He looks away, but not before I see the question forming in his eyes. I'm used to the stares by now. Some people are obvious about it, craning their necks for a better look. Others try to be subtle, stealing glances they think I won't notice. Children are the most honest. They see something different and want to understand it. I don't blame them. I'm still trying to understand it myself. The park entrance looms ahead, and my heart rate kicks up. This is stupid, it's just a park. But my palms are sweating, and there's a metallic taste in my mouth that I recognize as fear. The bus stop is right there. I could get off. I could turn around and go home and nobody would know except me, but I don't. I stay on the bus until my stop, and then I stand, gripping the handrail tighter than necessary, and I make my way down the steps. The prosthetics don't quite move the way real legs do. There's a stiffness to the joints, a slight delay between intention and action. I'm faster than I used to be, more practiced, but it will never be natural. It will never be easy. The park is busy for a Friday morning. Joggers on the paths, families spreading blankets on the grass, elderly couples walking arm in arm. The air smells like cut grass and street food from the vendors near the entrance. I buy a bottle of water from one of them, more for something to do with my hands than because I'm thirsty, and I start walking. The paths are smooth, well-maintained, designed for accessibility. I should be grateful for that, and I am, but there's also a part of me that resents needing them to be this way. I used to run these trails without thinking twice about uneven ground or steep inclines. Now every crack in the pavement is a potential hazard. I find a bench near the lake and sit down. The water is grey-green, reflecting the cloudy sky. Ducks paddle near the shore, and a small group of children throw bread to them despite the signs asking visitors not to feed the wildlife. Their laughter carries across the water, bright and uncomplicated. I wonder if I was ever that carefree, even as a child. It feels like a lifetime ago. The medal rests against my chest, warm from my body heat. I touch it through my shirt, tracing its outline with my fingertips. Nobody knows I'm wearing it. Nobody knows what it means to me, the weight it carries. It's my secret, my burden, my reminder of everything I lost and somehow survived. I sit there for a long time, watching the park come alive around me. A street performer sets up near the fountain, playing something melancholy on a guitar. A group of teenagers practices capoeira on the grass, their movements fluid and powerful. An older woman feeds the pigeons, despite having just watched the children being told not to feed the ducks. Life continues, indifferent to my personal tragedy. And slowly, incrementally, something inside me begins to loosen. Maybe this is what healing looks like. Not the dramatic transformation I'd hoped for, not the moment where everything suddenly makes sense and I'm whole again. Just sitting on a bench in a park, watching strangers live their lives and feeling slightly less broken than I did an hour ago. I'm about to get up, to take a walk around the lake before my courage runs out, when someone sits down on the other end of the bench. I don't look over immediately. People share benches in parks all the time, it doesn't mean anything. But then I hear a sharp intake of breath, and when I glance over, the man sitting there is staring at me with an expression I can't quite read. Not the usual curiosity or pity I'm used to seeing. Something else, something that makes my skin prickle. He's in his 40s, maybe early 50s, with grey threaded through dark hair and deep lines around his eyes. He's wearing running clothes, shorts, a technical shirt, expensive shoes, and there's a water bottle in his hand that he seems to have forgotten about. He's just staring. Desculpe, I say automatically, my Portuguese coming out rusty from disuse. Sorry. Though I'm not sure what I'm apologizing for. Existing, maybe. Taking up space on the bench. But he doesn't look away. If anything, his stare intensifies, and now I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. I move to stand to find another bench, another part of the park where strangers don't look at me like I'm a ghost. That medal, he says, and his voice is rough, urgent. He's speaking Portuguese, but there's something careful in his pronunciation, like he learned it as a second language and has to think about each word. Where did you get that medal? My hand flies to my chest, covering the medal instinctively. How does he even know it's there? I'm wearing a shirt. But then I realize I've been touching it, tracing its outline, drawing attention to it without meaning to. It's mine, I say, defensive without knowing why. The running medal, 3rd place, São Paulo Charity Run 2019, 10 kilometers, women's division. He recites the details like he's reading from a script, like he's memorized them. I'm right, aren't I? My mouth goes dry. How do you... Show me. It's not quite a command, but it's not a request either. There's something desperate in his eyes now, something that makes me pull the chain out from under my shirt before I can think better of it. The medal catches the light as it swings free. Tarnished bronze, faded ribbon, that damn inscription that's haunted me for 6 years. The man leans closer, not touching but near enough that I could count the lines on his face, and I watch as his expression shifts through a dozen emotions I don't have names for. Meu Deus, he whispers. My God. Then louder in accented Portuguese, you're alive, you're actually alive. What? I pull back, tucking the medal away again, my heart hammering against my ribs. Do I know you? He shakes his head, but his eyes never leave my face. No. No, you don't know me. But I know you. Or I know what happened to you. That day on Avenida Paulista, June 15th, 2019, around 9:30 in the morning, you were running. The truck came through the intersection and... He stops, swallows hard. I was there. The world tilts sideways. June 15th, 2019. The day everything ended. The day the truck hit me, the day I woke up in the hospital 3 days later to learn that both my legs had been crushed beyond repair, the day my old life died and this new, diminished one began. You were there, I repeat numbly. It's not a question. I can see the truth of it written in every line of his face. I was one of the paramedics who responded to the call. He says it quietly, like a confession. My partner and I, we arrived maybe 4 minutes after the accident. You were unconscious, there was so much blood. The truck driver was in shock, people were screaming, and you were just lying there in the street with your legs. He cuts himself off, and I'm grateful. I don't need him to finish that sentence, I've lived it. I don't remember, I say. I don't remember anything after the impact. That's common. The brain protects you from trauma like that. He runs a hand through his hair and I notice his fingers are shaking slightly. We stabilized you. Got you into the ambulance. Your legs were... The damage was catastrophic. We knew you'd lose them. But you were alive, and that's what mattered. You had a pulse. You were breathing. We got you to Hospital das Clínicas, and I rode with you the whole way, talking to you even though you couldn't hear me, telling you to hold on. I can't speak. My throat has closed up entirely. This man, this stranger, was there during the worst moment of my life. He saw me at my most vulnerable, my most broken. He pulled me back from whatever edge I was teetering on. The medal, he continues, it was clutched in your right hand. Your fist was closed around it so tight we couldn't pry your fingers open at first. We thought maybe it was important, so we made sure it stayed with you. I remember noting it in the report. Patient holding medal from recent race, possible significance. He laughs, but there's no humor in it. I've thought about you so many times over the years, wondered what happened to you, if you made it through surgery, if you survived. We don't usually get to know. We drop patients off at the hospital and move on to the next call. We're not supposed to get attached, but some cases stay with you. I survived, I say, and my voice sounds strange to my own ears. Obviously. Obviously. He smiles, and it's sad and relieved at the same time. I cannot tell you how many times I've looked at women in wheelchairs, or with prosthetics in this city, and wondered if it was you. How many times I've wanted to know if you were okay. And now here you are, sitting on a bench in Ibirapuera, wearing that same medal from the day everything went wrong. I look down at the medal now hidden beneath my shirt again. The same medal, the same cursed piece of metal that I can't bring myself to throw away, that I carry like an albatross around my neck. Why do you still have it? He asks gently. If you don't mind me asking. I mind, of course I mind. But something about this moment, this impossible coincidence, makes me want to answer. Makes me need to answer. I don't know, I say honestly. I tell myself it's because I earned it, because it's the last thing I accomplished with my real legs. But that's not really true, is it? The truth is, I think I keep it as punishment. Punishment for what? For being careless, for not paying attention, for thinking I was invincible. The words tumble out before I can stop them. I was running with my music too loud. I wasn't watching the traffic. The signal had just changed, and I thought I had time to cross before the cars started moving. But that truck, it ran the red light and I didn't see it coming, because I wasn't looking, because I was in my own world, thinking about my pace and my time and how I was going to beat my personal record. And then everything just ended. You think the accident was your fault. It's not a question, but I answer anyway. I know it was my fault. The truck driver shouldn't have run the light, but I shouldn't have been crossing against the signal. I should have been more careful, I should have been paying attention, and because I wasn't, I lost everything. No. His voice is firm now, sharp enough to cut through my spiral. No, that's not what happened. I read the full report after I got off shift that day. I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I pulled up all the documentation. The truck driver was speeding. He was texting on his phone. He blew through that intersection at 60 kilometers per hour in a 30 zone. You were crossing on a green light. You had the right of way. The witnesses were clear about that. You were not at fault. I shake my head. The witnesses were wrong. I remember the light was yellow. I was trying to beat it. The witnesses included a traffic camera. He pulls out his phone, and for a moment, I think he's going to show me something, but he just holds it in his hand. I can't show you the footage, it's not public record, but I'm telling you, as someone who watched it multiple times, you had a green light. You were crossing legally. That driver should have stopped. He didn't. That's on him, not you. The information doesn't compute. For 6 years, I've carried the certainty of my own guilt. I've worn this medal as a reminder of my arrogance, my carelessness, my hubris. The belief that I caused my own suffering has been the foundation of my entire post-accident identity. And now this stranger, this paramedic, is telling me I've been wrong all along. You're sure, I say, and I hate how small my voice sounds. I'm sure. I staked my professional opinion on it in my report. That driver was arrested and charged with reckless endangerment. He served 2 years in prison. You didn't know. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to be involved in any of it. My lawyer handled everything. I signed papers I didn't read. I just wanted it to be over. It wasn't your fault, he says again. And this time I hear him. Really hear him. The medal against my chest suddenly feels different. Not lighter exactly, but less like a weight pulling me down and more like, I don't know, just a thing, just a piece of metal on a chain. 6 years, I whisper. I've spent 6 years thinking I deserved this. Nobody deserves what happened to you. Not the woman crossing the street legally. Not the driver who made a terrible choice. Nobody. We sit in silence for a moment. Around us, the park continues its rhythms. The capoeira group has moved on, replaced by a yoga class spreading mats on the grass. The street performer is packing up his guitar. The ducks are still paddling in the grey-green water, oblivious to the small earthquake happening on this bench. What's your name? I ask finally. Daniel Santos. He extends his hand, and I shake it. His grip is warm and solid. And you? Marina Costa. Marina, He tests the name out, nods like it fits. I'm glad you survived, Marina. I'm glad you're here. I'm not sure I am, I say, too honest. Glad, I mean. Most days I wish the truck had finished the job. I expect him to look shocked or uncomfortable, to offer platitudes about how life is precious and things get better, but he just nods like I've said something perfectly reasonable. That's fair, he says. You lost something irreplaceable. Your body, your identity, probably your sense of safety in the world. Of course you're not glad, but you're here anyway. That counts for something. Does it? I think so. You came to the park today. You're wearing the medal. You're engaging with the world instead of hiding from it. Those aren't the actions of someone who's given up. They're the actions of someone who's finally run out of excuses to stay home, I correct him. But even as I say it, I know he's partly right. I could have stayed in my apartment. I could have left the medal in the drawer. I made choices today, small ones maybe, but choices nonetheless. Why do you still work as a paramedic? I ask suddenly. If cases like mine stay with you, why keep doing it? He thinks about that for a moment, watching the water. Because sometimes we get to save people, and sometimes, if we're incredibly lucky, we get to find out that the people we saved went on to live their lives, even if those lives look different than they did before. I'm not living my life, I say. I'm existing. There's a difference. Maybe today is the day that changes. I want to argue with him, to explain all the reasons why today is no different from yesterday or the day before, or the 6 years of days that came before those. But something stops me. Maybe it's the way he's looking at me, with compassion but not pity. Maybe it's the revelation that I've been carrying false guilt for all these years. Maybe it's just the simple fact of being here, in the park, having a conversation with another human being like I used to do before I became a shut-in. I used to love running, I hear myself say. I wasn't great at it, obviously. I touched the medal again. 3rd place. But I loved it anyway. The feeling of my body moving, the rhythm of it, the way everything else would just fade away, and it would be just me and the trail and the wind in my face. I felt powerful when I ran, like I could do anything. You still can. Daniel... No, listen. I've worked with dozens of amputees over the years. I've seen people who lost limbs to accidents, to illness, to violence, and you know what? The ones who thrive aren't the ones who try to get back to exactly who they were before. They're the ones who figure out who they're going to be now, who find new ways to feel powerful. That's easy to say when you still have your legs. You're right, it is. And I'm not trying to minimize what you've been through, but I'm also not going to let you pretend that life stopped the day that truck hit you. It changed. Drastically, unfairly, but it didn't stop. I want to be angry at him for the lecture, but I can't muster it. Because he's right, and some part of me has known he's right for months now, maybe years. I've been waiting for permission to move forward, and I've been waiting for it from the wrong place. From the universe, maybe, or from some cosmic acknowledgement that I've suffered enough and earned the right to be whole again. But that's not how any of this works. I don't know how to be this person, I admit. The person with prosthetics who can't run anymore and has panic attacks on buses and wears a medal from a race she barely remembers like it's some kind of sacred relic. I don't know how to be her. Then figure it out, one day at a time, one decision at a time. He stands up, stretches his legs. I need to finish my run. But Marina, can I say one more thing? Sure. That medal, the one you've been using as punishment. What if you started thinking of it as something else? Not a reminder of what you lost, but proof that you were there, that you participated, that you crossed the finish line and earned 3rd place in a 10-kilometer race, which is more than most people ever do. What if you let it mean what it was supposed to mean all along? He doesn't wait for an answer, just gives me a small wave and jogs off down the path, his form easy and practiced. I watch him disappear around a bend, and then I'm alone on the bench again, but somehow the solitude feels different now. I pull the medal out and look at it properly for the first time in years. Really look at it. The bronze is tarnished, yes, and the ribbon is faded. But the engraving is still there, still legible if you hold it in the right light. 3rd place, 10 kilometers, 2019. I'd run that race on a brutally hot June morning, pushing through the pain in my calves and the stitch in my side. And I'd cross the finish line with my arms raised in triumph even though I hadn't won. Because finishing was its own kind of victory. I'd been proud of this medal once. Before everything went wrong, before it became tangled up with trauma and guilt and loss, I'd been genuinely proud. I'd taken a selfie with it and posted it online. I'd shown it to my mother over video chat. I'd hung it on my wall next to the other medals from other races, each one a small proof that I was capable, that I was strong, that I could set a goal and achieve it. What would happen if I let myself be proud of it again? The question feels dangerous, revolutionary. Because if I stop using the medal as punishment, if I stop carrying the guilt of an accident that wasn't my fault, then what? Then I have to figure out how to live without that armor, without that excuse. I have to actually try. I sit with that thought for a long time. The park empties and refills around me. The sun breaks through the clouds, then disappears again. My phone buzzes with messages I don't check. And slowly, carefully, I start to imagine what it might look like to try. Maybe it starts small. Coming back to the park tomorrow, and the day after that. Building a routine, rebuilding confidence. Maybe it means joining a support group for amputees, something I've resisted for years because I didn't want to be defined by my disability. Maybe it means going back to therapy and actually being honest, instead of just showing up and saying what I think the therapist wants to hear. Maybe it means learning to run again. The thought arrives unbidden and absurd. Run again. With prosthetics that don't bend like real knees, with a center of balance that's permanently altered, with the trauma of what happened the last time I ran still fresh in my mind. It's impossible. It's ridiculous. But is it? I've seen videos online, in the darkest hours of insomnia when I fall down internet rabbit holes. Blade runners, they call them. Athletes with carbon fiber prosthetics designed for speed, racing in Paralympics, competing at levels I never reached even with my original legs. I've watched those videos with a mixture of awe and resentment, unable to imagine myself in their place. But what if I could? Not competing in Paralympics maybe, not breaking records or winning medals, but just running, just feeling the wind in my face again, and the rhythm of movement and the freedom of propelling myself forward under my own power. What if? I stand up from the bench, testing my weight on the prosthetics. They hold, as they always do. The engineering is good. The prosthetist who fitted them told me they could handle jogging, light running even, once I built up the strength and confidence. I'd nodded like I was listening, but inside I'd been thinking, why would I ever want to run again? Now, standing here in Ibirapuera with Daniel's words still echoing in my head and the medal resting against my heart like it belongs there, I think, why wouldn't I? I take a step, then another, then another. Not running, just walking, but faster than my usual cautious pace. The path stretches out ahead of me, smooth and even, and I follow it. Around the lake, past the fountain, past the yoga class and the vendors and the families on their blankets. My gait is uneven, awkward, nothing like the fluid stride I used to have, but I'm moving. I'm going somewhere. I walk for 20 minutes, then 30. My residual limbs start to ache, and I know I'll pay for this tomorrow with swelling and pain. But I don't stop, not yet. Not until I've made it all the way around the lake and back to the bench where I started, completing a circuit I haven't attempted in 6 years. When I finally sit down again, I'm breathing hard, and my heart is racing and everything hurts. But I'm also smiling, actually smiling for the first time in longer than I can remember. I pull out my phone and open the camera app. The woman who looks back at me from the screen is flushed and sweaty, her hair falling out of its bun, the medal visible against her shirt. She looks tired. She looks like she's been through hell. But she also looks alive in a way she hasn't in years. I take the photo. Then, before I can second-guess myself, I open Instagram for the first time since the accident. My account is still there, frozen in time. The last post is from June 14th, 2019, the day before everything changed. A photo of my running shoes with a caption about being ready for tomorrow's race. The comments are full of concerned messages from people who heard about the accident, asking if I'm okay, sending prayers and well wishes. I never responded to any of them. I let that version of Marina die on that street corner and never told anyone she was gone. But she's not gone, is she? She's different, changed, but not gone. I start typing a new caption for the photo I just took. 6 years ago, I earned this medal running 10 kilometers in Sao Paulo. A few hours later, I lost my legs in an accident. I've spent every day since then thinking I deserved what happened to me. Today, I learned I was wrong. Today, I walked around the lake in Ibirapuera. Tomorrow, maybe I'll walk a little faster. The day after that, who knows? I'm still here, still fighting, still proving that finishing is its own kind of victory. My finger hovers over the post button. This feels huge, irrevocable. Once I post this, people will know. They'll see what happened to me. They'll have questions, opinions, pity. Do I want that? But then I think about Daniel jogging away down the path, about the relief in his eyes when he realized I'd survived. I think about all the other people who might be struggling with trauma or disability or guilt, who might need to hear that survival is possible even when you're not sure you want to survive. I think about the woman I used to be, the one who was proud of her third-place medal and posted about it without hesitation. I press post. The photo uploads, and within seconds, notifications start flooding in. Old friends, former co-workers, people I haven't spoken to in years, all reacting with hearts and supportive comments. It's overwhelming. It's terrifying. It's also kind of wonderful. I close the app and stand up, shouldering my backpack. The walk back to the bus stop feels shorter than it did this morning. The prosthetics feel more familiar. The medal feels like what it always should have been, a reminder of achievement, not punishment. On the bus ride home, I let myself think about the future in a way I haven't allowed in years. Not the fantasy version where I wake up and discover this was all a nightmare and my legs are back. The real version, where I figure out how to live this life I've been given. Maybe I join a support group. Maybe I go back to physical therapy and actually push myself instead of just going through the motions. Maybe I train until I can jog a kilometer, then 2, then eventually 10 again. Maybe I never run another race, or maybe I do and I come in last place, and I'm proud anyway because I finished. Maybe I help other people who are struggling with the same things I've struggled with. Maybe I become an advocate or a mentor, or just someone who shows up at the park regularly and proves by existing that life continues after tragedy. Maybe I'm still a runner, just a different kind than I used to be. The possibilities feel endless and daunting and exhilarating all at once. For the first time since the accident, I'm not looking backward with regret or forward with dread. I'm just here, in this moment, on this bus, alive and aware and ready to see what comes next. When I get home, I don't put the medal back in the drawer. Instead, I hang it on a hook by my front door where I can see it every time I leave the apartment. Third place, 10 kilometers, 2019. Proof that I was there. Proof that I participated. Proof that I finished. That night, I sleep better than I have in months. No phantom pains, no nightmares, just deep, dreamless rest. And when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I see is the medal catching the early light. Its tarnished bronze somehow beautiful. I get up, I put on the prosthetics, and I go back to the park. This time I don't sit on a bench. I walk the full perimeter of the lake, pushing myself just a little harder than yesterday. The next day I do it again, and the day after that. Each day I go a little further, move a little faster, hurt a little less. 2 weeks later I break into a jog for the first time. It's clumsy and slow and nothing like running used to feel, but it's forward motion under my own power, and that's enough. A month after meeting Daniel, I run into him again at the park. He's finishing his own run, and when he sees me in motion, even my awkward prosthetic-assisted jog, his face lights up with the same relief I saw that first day. "You're running," he says, a little breathless. "I'm trying," I correct him. "It's not pretty. It's beautiful." And the way he says it, I almost believe him. He asks if he can buy me a coffee, and we end up sitting at one of the park cafes for 2 hours, talking about everything and nothing. He tells me about other calls he's been on, other people he's saved and wondered about. I tell him about the Instagram post, about the messages I've received from strangers dealing with their own traumas, about the support group I finally joined, and the physical therapist who's helping me work toward actually running a 5K next year. "Next year," he repeats. "That's a real goal. That's something to work toward." It's terrifying, I admit. What if I can't do it? What if I fail? Then you try again, or you don't, but at least you'll have tried. He pauses, then adds, "For what it's worth, I don't think you're going to fail. I've seen a lot of people in my line of work, Marina. The ones who make it aren't the ones who never fall down. They're the ones who get back up." Is that what I'm doing? Getting back up? What do you think? I consider the question seriously. 6 weeks ago, I was barely leaving my apartment. Now I'm at the park almost every day, working on rebuilding my strength, reconnecting with old friends, making plans for a future I'd stopped believing I had. It's not a dramatic transformation. I'm not miraculously healed or suddenly whole. But I am moving forward. Slowly, imperfectly, but forward nonetheless. "Yeah," I say finally. "I think I am." Daniel smiles, and it's warm and genuine and full of something that looks like pride. "Good. Keep going." The world needs more people who refuse to stay down. When we part ways, he gives me his number and tells me to call if I ever need someone to run with. I take it, surprised to realize I might actually use it. The idea of running with someone else, of being seen in motion and vulnerability, would have been unthinkable a few months ago. Now it feels like just another challenge to eventually overcome. The months that follow aren't easy. There are setbacks, days when the pain is too much, when the prosthetics don't fit right, when the phantom pains leave me sobbing on the bathroom floor. Days when I look at other runners in the park with their effortless strides and feel the old bitterness rising up. Days when I want to rip the medal off my neck and throw it in the lake and give up on this whole stupid project of trying to be okay again. But I don't. I keep showing up, I keep pushing, and gradually, incrementally, running starts to feel less like punishment and more like freedom again. Not the same freedom I had before, but a new kind. The freedom of knowing what I'm capable of surviving. The freedom of choosing forward motion even when staying still would be easier. 8 months after meeting Daniel in the park, I register for a 5K race. It's a small local event, nothing prestigious. But when I receive the confirmation email, I stare at it for a full 5 minutes, hardly believing what I've done. I train harder. Daniel runs with me twice a week, adjusting his pace to match mine, offering encouragement without coddling. Other members of my support group do the same. Slowly, I build a community of people who understand, who've been through their own versions of hell and decided to keep living anyway. The day of the race arrives cold and clear, the kind of perfect running weather I used to love. I stand at the starting line with 200 other runners, and I'm terrified. What if I fall? What if I can't finish? What if everyone stares? But then I feel the weight of the medal beneath my shirt. I'm wearing it because of course I am, and I remember everything it represents. Not just the race where I earned it, but everything that came after. The survival, the struggle, the decision to try again despite everything. The starting gun fires and I run. It's slow. My prosthetics don't move like the other runners' legs. My form is all wrong. But I'm doing it. I'm actually doing it. And as I settle into a rhythm, something strange happens. I start to enjoy it. Not the pace, which is glacial compared to what I used to run. Not the physical sensation, which is still foreign and uncomfortable. But the simple fact of participation, of being here in motion, part of something larger than myself. I cross the finish line in 68 minutes. It's probably the slowest 5K time recorded that day. But when the volunteer hands me my finisher's medal, a cheap plastic thing that will probably fall apart in a week, I clutch it like it's made of gold. Daniel is waiting for me at the finish, and when he sees me, he doesn't ask about my time or congratulate me for finishing. He just smiles, nods once, and says, "How did it feel?" "Like flying," I say, and I'm surprised to realize it's true. That evening, I post another photo on Instagram. Me with both medals around my neck, the old bronze one from 2019 and the new plastic one from today, sweaty and exhausted and grinning like a fool. The caption reads, "2 medals, 6 years apart, different races, different challenges, different versions of me. But both times, I finished. Both times I proved that showing up matters. If you're struggling with something today, whether it's trauma or disability, or just the weight of being human, please know you can keep going. It won't look how you expected. It won't be easy, but it's possible. I'm living proof." The post goes viral, Within days, I'm receiving hundreds of messages from people around the world, amputees, accident survivors, people dealing with chronic pain, PTSD, depression, athletes who lost their abilities and are trying to find new ones. They all want to share their stories, to tell me about their struggles, to thank me for being honest about mine. It's overwhelming, but it's also profoundly meaningful in a way I never anticipated. My trauma, the thing I've tried so hard to hide from, has become a bridge to other people. My survival matters not just to me, but to everyone who sees themselves in my story. A local disability advocacy group reaches out, asking if I'd be willing to speak at an event. Then another. Then another. I say yes, even though public speaking terrifies me, because I remember how alone I felt in the months and years after the accident. If I can be for someone else what Daniel was for me that day in the park, a reminder that survival is possible, that life continues, then I have to try. The speaking engagements lead to other opportunities. A blog about adaptive athletics, a documentary about runners with prosthetics, consultations with hospitals and rehabilitation centers about how to better support amputee patients. Slowly, accidentally, I build a new identity that has nothing to do with mourning who I used to be, and everything to do with celebrating who I'm becoming. And through it all, I wear the medal. The third-place medal from a race I barely remember, that I once carried as punishment, and now wear as proof that endings can become beginnings if you're brave enough to let them. A year to the day after meeting Daniel in the park, I run my first 10K since the accident. He runs beside me the whole way, matching my pace, offering water at aid stations, celebrating every kilometer like it's a personal victory, which, in a way, it is. When I cross the finish line, 57th place out of 80 runners, nothing impressive. I don't get a medal. This particular race doesn't give them out, but I don't need one. I already have everything I need to remember this moment. The ache in my residual limbs, the burn in my lungs, the joy of forward motion, and the knowledge that I chose this. I chose to try. I chose to live. That evening, as the sun sets over São Paulo, I stand on my apartment balcony and look out over the city. Somewhere out there is the intersection where everything changed. The street corner where I lost my legs and, for a long time, lost myself. I haven't gone back there since it happened. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday I'll stand on that exact spot and acknowledge the girl I was and the woman I've become, and find some kind of peace in the distance between them. But not today. Today I'm content to stand here, feeling the weight of 2 medals around my neck. The old bronze one and a new silver one I bought myself to commemorate this particular 10K. And knowing that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Recovery isn't linear. Healing isn't a destination you arrive at and then stay forever. There will be hard days ahead, days when the phantom pains are unbearable or the weight of what I've lost crushes me all over again. Days when I question every choice I've made and wonder if any of this effort matters. But there will also be good days, days when running feels almost natural, days when I help someone else find their way through their own darkness. Days when I look at these medals and feel nothing but pride for what they represent, endurance, resilience, and the stubborn refusal to let tragedy have the final word. I think about all the people who've followed my journey on social media, who've reached out with their own stories of survival and struggle. I think about the messages I receive from parents of newly amputated children asking for advice, from athletes recovering from career-ending injuries looking for hope, from people battling invisible disabilities, grateful to see someone being honest about how hard it all is. My story matters to them. My survival matters. Not because I'm special or heroic or extraordinary, but precisely because I'm not. I'm just someone who got hurt and kept going anyway, and if I can do it, maybe they can too. That's worth something. That's worth everything. So if you're watching this, if you've made it this far in my story, I want you to know something. Whatever you're going through right now, whatever loss or pain or fear you're carrying, you're not alone. You're never alone. There are millions of us out here, walking around with our own invisible medals, our own proof that we survived things we didn't think we could survive. And we're all rooting for you to keep going. Your story isn't over. Your best days aren't behind you, just because the worst ones changed you. You are not defined by your trauma or your disability or your limitations. You're defined by what you choose to do next, by whether you let the hard things break you or remake you into something new and unexpected and possibly beautiful. Choose to keep going. Choose to try again. Choose to find meaning in the struggle and purpose in the pain. Choose to believe that your survival matters, not just to you but to everyone whose life will be touched by yours. I'm living proof that it's possible, that you can lose everything and still find reasons to wake up in the morning, that you can be broken and strong at the same time. That ending isn't the opposite of beginning. Sometimes it's the door that leads you there. So wear your medals, whatever they are, the literal ones and the metaphorical ones, the ones you earned before everything went wrong and the ones you've earned since. Let them remind you of who you were and who you're becoming and all the distance you've traveled between the two. And if you found something in my story that resonated with you, if any part of this helped you feel less alone, then do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, because I'm going to keep sharing my journey, the good days and the bad ones, the victories and the setbacks. And I want you there with me, cheering me on the way I'm cheering for you. We're all in this together after all. All of us stumbling forward with our imperfect bodies and our scarred hearts, and our stubborn hope that tomorrow might be better than today. All of us proving every single day that survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about deciding what kind of life you're going to live. So subscribe. Join this community of survivors and fighters and people who refuse to give up. Share your own story in the comments. Let's build something here, together. Let's remind each other that we're not alone, that we're not broken, that we're exactly who we're supposed to be. Because that medal you're carrying, the one you earned, or the one you're working toward, or the one you don't think you deserve, it's yours. You earned it by surviving, by trying, by refusing to let the worst day of your life define every day that came after. Wear it proudly, you've earned it, and I'll see you in the next video.